So it seems that Games Workshop's raising the price for Battleforce box sets. There's a first glimpse of a Psyker skull from a Black Templar teaser. The first official World Eaters rules showcase has gone out, and it seems to confirm the leaks. It looks like Lieutenant Titus is finally going on general sale online, and will be available from discount retailers. Let's talk about a whole bunch of Warhammer 40k news, previews and releases. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where today I thought I'd do a quick roundup of a whole bunch of Warhammer 40k news things from over the last week or so. A whole bunch of things that I didn't think maybe needed an entire video all to themselves for this one, but I still found interesting and worth talking about on the channel. First up, let's talk about what seems it can only be a teaser of the new Black Templars miniature coming out. This one from Games Workshop's rumour engine from last week. Basically, the picture is what looks like a human skull, but with a third eye directly in the forehead, encased in metal and a whole bunch of sharp spikes protruding out of an iron halo type thing. It certainly has similar sort of vibes to the skull of the Cacodominus relic that's modelled on the Black Templar upgrade sprue. Quite a lot of similarities there, with a skull with a third eye in it, all surrounded by very pointy spikes. That relic, I believe, is of a rather disturbing Psyker, who held sway over an entire patch of the galaxy before being killed by the Black Templars. This one looks like more of a human skull and might well be a navigator perhaps. Seems very fitting for the Black Templars to want to display skulls of slain Psykers on their reliquaries though perhaps, and feels like there could be a pretty good chance this could be from a Black Templar character. Just from the look of it, it's the sort of thing I could imagine on a Space Marine backpack, or maybe at the top of a standard or vehicle adornment perhaps. A single character release seems to be the most likely thing that the Black Templars could get. They've got their codex coming in the not too distant future. It's on the release timetable after the Thousand Suns and Space Wolves, but without the miniature having been shown off yet. But I guess the reveal might not be too far away. Probably a single character release seems like the most likely thing, given that they had a fairly completist range refresh in 9th edition. I'd be kind of surprised if they get anything too generous as a result. Perhaps a generic Templar chaplain, a Martian and Terminator armour, or a standard bearer all could be possibilities. There are plenty of options for other things, of course. In another small release for this week, it seems that as well as the Battleforce's combat patrols and the new Chaos Codexes, Lieutenant Titus is also getting a release. Games Workshop sold his model in various different ways recently. I think he's been in 2 different Versus boxes against swarms of Tyranids. Then was handed out as an individual miniature to brick and mortar Games Workshop stores, but it finally looks like he might be actually getting an online release, and it appears that they're going to allow the discount retailers to stock him as well. Feels like at the moment if you wanted to pick up Lieutenant Dimitri and Titus, you might have been able to, though not without effort, or maybe paying second-hand people selling them prices. So it might be the first time that a few people had chance to pick him up if you did want to get the miniature but didn't want to go to big effort tracking and hunting him down. Looks like he's going up for pre-order on the 26th of April along with the rest, and it looks like his price tag is going to be the more sort of standard generic character price tag as opposed to the more expensive epic hero sort of price tag that they often inflate the price to, $42, £26 or €34. I feel like maybe his miniature divides opinion just a little bit more than some. Looks the part well enough, though I have seen a bit of criticism of the posing and his face. Let me know how you'd rate it down in the comments. For his in-game rules, he does have a current 40k datasheet. It was released digitally by Games Workshop and is available to download right now. There were some people confused as to whether or not it was aimed to be Legends at the time, though it very much is part of the core 40k game for this guy. If you want to field him in-game, he's 70 points at the moment. It's somewhat sturdy for a support character with 5 wounds and a 5+ feel no pain. For his unit buff, he gives his squad sustained hits 1 whether shooting or fighting, and his attacks are with an Astartes chainsword, but he gets 8 attacks and anti-infantry 2+, basically meaning that he's going to be very effective indeed at ploughing through swarms of enemies, but not really much threat at all to tougher stuff out there. His other special rule is a fights in death one. For character options to lead units, unfortunately that puts him in a kind of niche place really. It's not absolutely awful, that sustained hits 1 has value basically wherever he is, and it does have a little bit of personal melee threat. In general though, people tend to rate just standard lieutenants better, between lethal hits and getting a power fist and being a bit cheaper. And in particular for the Ultramarines, he's got lots of competition against things like Calgar and Gilliman trying to steal his glory. I still think it's nice enough that he gets some themed rule support though. Next up, I'm certainly interested to check back to the pricing of the Death Guard and World Eaters Battleforce box sets, and unfortunately it doesn't really seem to be good news here. I'd guess that the price on the Poxwalk Vector and the Gorestorm Slaughter Pack might have been $230, or potentially a little bit cheaper, maybe around about the $215 mark. I believe that was the price on last year's Agents of the Imperium box set, which were the last patterns of this Battleforce box set that Games Workshop did. Unfortunately though, Games Workshop seems to have hit their Battleforces with a price rise, or at least for these ones specifically. A fair few places have reported it, and it looks like it's $240 or 290 Canadian dollars for this one. so a small increase compared with say the Death Korps of Krieg, Champions of Slaanesh, or the Christmas Battleforce box sets. All of those were $230, or I believe $275 Canadian. And for other places around the world, that'd mean it say £150 or €190. Might be a little bit more or less depending on exactly how Games Workshop converts the currency. Obviously really quite disappointing. Warhammer is generally considered to be pretty expensive, so further price rises are never exactly going to be good feels, and makes them a slightly worse deal for the things that you get in the box set and the discount in them as a result. Not exactly crazy different, but not very feels good. I guess there's a chance that this might be reflective of Games Workshop's annual inflation price rise that they tend to do. I believe that's usually either end of March or June, so it would be sort of in the window when that could happen. So it might be that Battleforce box sets like this continue at this price from now on. If that's so though, then it doesn't look like it's been applied to other things yet. The Combat Patrol prices look like they're just the same as they ever are. It's not an enormous price increase relative to what we were expecting them to cost. As mentioned, my guess for the prices would have been probably around $230, so a small increase from that. It still means that say the Death Guard one is around about a 30% discount on buying the thing separately. Generally it was quite well received due to having a good mix of miniatures in it plus the new one. The Gorestorm Slaughter Pack seems to be a fair bit less popular than the Death Guard one. It was rated lower and fewer people are looking to buy it, even if it maybe has the very slightly better discount on paper at least. It's just more that the model mix isn't quite as impressive and you don't get many 8-bound models in a box set. In any case, they'll be going on sale at the weekend. If you're still looking to pick up battle forces or combat patrols and things, then consider checking out the channel's affiliate discount retailers linked in the video description. They have some good savings versus Games Workshop and help to support Auspex Tactics videos as well. A big thank you to anyone using those. Moving on though, and next up we have some World Eaters rules previews. Games Workshop basically did some paired ones for Death Guard and World Eaters, both showing off their new detachments on Monday. Though given that the World Eaters Codex was leaked last week, the Death Guard ones were rather bigger news versus the World Eaters. I still thought it'd be interesting enough to take a look at the rules previews though, what Games Workshop confirmed and what they didn't, and in particular some kind of weird text that they wrote relating to their army rule, which maybe feels like it's trying to downplay the changes a little bit, though just doesn't really seem very well informed about them. Otherwise though, the World Eaters reveals basically confirm that the leaks are broadly on the money. The detachment names are all the same, and the previewed detachment rules and stratagems fit perfectly with what was leaked, so basically that is very much confirmed, though it pretty much was already really. Before talking through the previewed stuff, perhaps the weirdest claim that they had was the changes to their core rule. Games Workshop wrote, unlike their rotting rivals the Death Guard, the World Eaters army rule has gone through almost no modifications to the one in Index World Eaters, and just talked about a little bit of the dice math being changed on how the blessings activate, and seemingly passing over really quite the big movement rule changes that have been leaked out. The blessings of Khorne have basically been changed so that every unit in the army doesn't move an extra 2 inches and you can't advance and charge with everything at the same time, with instead of that a few more datasheets just gaining some base extra movement, which they get all the time for free, but no longer as big a threat range as most of them can't combine it with advancing and charging now. It seems they want them to be kind of fast, but not quite so fast as the Emperor's Children. I'm still far more inclined to believe a leak that seems to have been right on everything else rather than Games Workshop's nebulous language there. But maybe just felt a bit odd to me to say that the rule's basically unchanged, when sure the way that you generate the blessings might be fairly similar, but the actual buffs that it provides are very different. In any case, for other confirmed things for the World Eaters, the detachment names are alright, the Berserker Warband, the general purpose melee one, the Cult of Blood with jackals and goremongers worshipping monsters, the Khorne Demonkin allied with the demon datasheets in the book, the Possessed Slaughter Band being all very 8-bound focused, and the Goretrack Onslaught being transport focused. They'll be able to use those along with the Vessels of Wrath. For their actual rules previews, like the Death Guard, they just focused on 2 detachments, in this case the Cult of Blood and the Goretrack Onslaught. Here's the full text for the Cult of Blood detachment rule, as leaked by Blog for the Blood God. It gives benefits to jackals and goremongers within 6 inches of either World Eaters monsters like Demon Princes, or within 9 inches of Titanic units, so the Khorne Lord of Skulls there. You declare the buff that they get in the command phase. It lasts until the start of the next one. There's 3 different ones to choose from, and kind of similar to the Space Marine Gladius doctrines, you can't repeat them. So basically you get 1 big turn of +1 to hit and wound with those units, 1 big turn of +1 to move, advance and charge, and 1 big turn of 4+ invulnerable save. At least on paper it maybe feels like those rumoured lone operative foot demon princes could be particularly well suited to handing out buffs there. They could be in amongst the masses and not get shot. And as for the buffs themselves, I feel like the damage buff is quite a punchy one, but on the other hand it's using some very low AP profiles to do that, so you might still struggle to claw down tough stuff with jackals and cultists. The movement one is okay, does add a bit to the threat range, but only about 2 inches. If you're moving normally then charging, feels like maybe the 4+ invulnerable save one is the biggest value. That changes the units from being really easy to kill to somewhat tough. and one of them has a stratagem for a feel no pain as well. Feels like the first turn that the army is exposed in a major way, it's going to be able to tank a bunch of damage. They revealed one stratagem and one enhancement in full. The stratagem's the Feel No Pain one, a 6+ Feel No Pain for Jackals or Goremongers, boosted to a 5+ if within range of one of those idols. That looks solidly usable, though far better against damage 1 attacks compared with anything with a bit more. And then they've got an enhancement called Butcher Lord, which basically allows an infantry character to lead either Jackals or Goremongers, and if attached to Goremongers it gains Infiltrate. Could be interesting enough to have a fighty character really far up the board very quickly. I guess it would either be the Master of Executions or the new Slaughterbound model. I'm still maybe a bit unconvinced that this one is necessarily going to be a strong detachment based on the leaks so far, at least compared with some of the more general purpose ones that focus on the bigger danger units. Before we move on to the other Khorne detachment previews, I'll just give a quick shout out to today's video sponsor in Lunar Wars. They're basically a new tabletop skirmish game project made by Titus games based in Scandinavia, and the idea behind their game is to command one of 4 unique factions in the battle for the moon. It's a 45mm war game, and the miniatures are sculpted by Bob Naismith, who sculpted some of the very first Space Marines for Warhammer. They've got a bunch of different models, including some exosuits, jetpack troopers, and plenty more on the way. And at the moment they're basically launching a Kickstarter game found page type thing, where the principal offering is this Lunar Wars core box with the miniatures shown here, 7 US versus 7 Russians, and the rules and counters needed to play the game. They also have bigger pledges to come out with some of the other planned miniatures, and you get this medic guy free with any pledge. The idea behind this is that it ships out early 2026, being produced later this year after the pledges close. Obviously bear in mind that it's a Kickstarter style offering, and not every single product launch goes smoothly, so obviously not as reliable as buying a game right off the shelf. Might be of interest to some of you though. Feel free to check them out in the links in the video description if you'd like to, and thanks to them for sponsoring this one. Back to the World Eaters though, and their other preview detachment was the Gortrak Onslaught. This one's the sort of Rhino Rush Berserker themed detachment. You could in theory use some of the benefits for Land Raiders, though I feel like they just don't do quite as well, where the obvious choice will be 8-bound, but they just move really fast anyway and can go through walls and things as they do so just don't seem to make quite so much sense on that score. In any case, their core rule is Rush to the Fray, +1 to charge rules, and the Lance keyword for units that have disembarked from a transport this turn. So basically, for Khorne Berserkers jumping out of a Rhino, you'd have an average of +4 threat range after they've jumped out the front and got that extra +1 to the charge. So average charge is around about 19 inches for Berserkers out of a metal box there. And it seems that Lance keyword would be pretty useful for Berserkers if they really are the rumoured strength 4 that the leak stated they'd be. It does kind of require Berserkers and Rhinos to be a legitimately great thing for this detachment to really work though. For stratagems, it looked like they showed off the 2 melee delivery ones, 1 command point for basically move, drop, charge with a Rhino. So essentially getting the assault ramp keyword off the Land Raider pretty much. That puts the Berserkers up to an average 23-inch melee delivery threat range, which is pretty big. And then another one called Aggressive Disembarkation. You could use that for a similar sort of purpose, as you can just have models get 6 inches out of a Rhino. That's a bigger threat range in itself, but also as a bonus they can get out into engagement range, which occasionally could be handy. Usually you wouldn't want to, as you wouldn't get your fights first or your Lance keyword with that. But it could be a way to avoid Overwatch, or potentially get out into limited spaces if the enemy's gummed it up with a whole bunch of Horde models. That fits well with the previous leak for the Gortrak Onslaught. There's a few other stratagem tricks, such as things getting back into Rhinos, reactive moving after being shot. It sounds like the single craziest one is that a Rhino that gets shot can have the Khorne Berserkers get out and immediately Blood Surge, which seems kind of hellishly scary for trying to deal with World Eaters Rhinos in the enemy turn. Will be interesting to see which of the detachments rise to the top for the World Eaters. I feel like a few of them seem fairly interesting. The Berserker Warband with its big strength buffs is still nice, and the 8-bound focus one looks interesting enough. It does look like there's some pretty fearsome datasheets. Otherwise, I hadn't gotten around to talking about last week's pre-orders on the channel yet. Basically, in between the Emperor's Children ones and this World Eaters and Death Guard one, we had a wave of a bunch of different specialist games, a couple of Space Marines from the Horus Heresy, High Elves, Necromunda, and some Legions Imperialis. The 2 Space Marine model releases were the Raven Guard and Blood Angels characters that they'd shown off fairly recently, both named characters I believe starring in the Horus Heresy novels, and could be interesting enough themed character miniatures to add into 40k as well. The Blood Angels one is looking all rather blingy and armed with a fancy axe. The Raven Guard guy with some cool stylized armour, and a pair of Gunslinger fancy pistols. As they're Forge World resin, they're rather expensive. I think a massive £37 in the UK, compared with the normal quite high character prices of something like 26 or so. I can't see them in the US web store at the moment, so they might be delayed there. Otherwise, for last week's releases, there's a bunch of High Elves returning to the old world with a whole bunch more kits appearing. Some Legions Imperialis with a whole bunch of little knights, including the Forge World style ones. I believe a bunch of these being redone in plastic after originally being in resin, plus some Mechanicum battle tanks as well. And then otherwise there's another slew of Necromunda miniatures going on sale. These are all from Forge World and include a few interesting ones. There's the rather disturbing Prophet guy with his reliquary there, the Whisper Master in his hover chair type thing, and a mysterious lone wolf space marine who appears to be a renegade blood angel, a pretty unusual character in 40k in general. Finally, for small reveals, there was a Daughters of Cain Underworld team as well. They were Games Workshop's model reveal for Monday. For next things expected for Warhammer 40k, Games Workshop certainly ticked a few things off the agenda with the Death Guard and World Eaters releases and the Emperor's Children Combat Patrol. I guess for other things to expect in the near future, the Emperor's Children points are going tournament live fairly soon. I expect their digital downloads to update the Minotaur and Field Manual later in the week. And then I guess for Codex releases, it'll be Space Wolves getting their launch box and the Thousand Sons getting their Codex release and Battleforce. For other 40k releases, they've got Kill Team Typhon with the Raveners vs Servitors, and then individual releases for the other remaining kill teams, including those World Eaters Goremongers, and then the Slaughterbound and the Lord of Poxes coming out individually eventually. Then we've got the Armageddon Crusade book and the Grey Knights Codex and Battleforce on the horizon. Games Workshop's next reveal show is likely to be in the Dallas Open, probably around about the 22nd of May or so. And unless we get some more surprise Space Marine reveals like those drop pods dropping in, that should probably be the next major wave to show things off. Seems likely to maybe have some more Space Wolves, perhaps some Knights miniatures or Templars or more Space Marines there. Otherwise, sometime in the near future, there'll be a balance update in summer as well. They revealed the 2025-26 mission deck coming up soon with those Challenger bonuses. If they go by previous patterns, then that'll be towards the start of June, though it could be a little bit earlier or later. Finally, for one of the minor release that might be of interest to some of you out there, I thought I'd just give a shout out that Greytide Studios bits have gone on sale in Wargame Portal in the USA. They're basically 3D printed bits that can add a bit of flavour to certain ranges of Divergent Space Marines if desired. Their Crimson Lord ones have been putting some wings back on jump packs that should have had them in the first place, and the Primal Hounds one could be of interest to some people given the new release waves for the Sons of Ross. In my opinion, they do have some pretty cool parts. Their medic pack could be a fair bit cheaper than buying an expensive character miniature. They've got bits for wing jump packs and head swaps for various Golden Guardians out there, chevron jetpacks and shoulder pads, and a whole bunch of other things for the Primal Hands as well. Weapon options and themed shields and things. And I must admit, I did quite like their ancient armour as well, all looking rather stunning when combined with a Redemptor Dreadnought. In any case, I'll leave them links down in the video description, hopefully could be of some use to some of you, and as always, anything bought through the links from Wargame Portal helps to support Auspex Tactics, whether Warhammer 40k pre-orders and things, or 3D printed parts. In any case, I'll leave this one there for now. Let me know your thoughts on all the Warhammer news and reveals. What do you make of those Battleforce prices, Titus going on sale, and Black Templar teasers? Look forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments below. As mentioned, feel free to check out Lunar Wars as well, who sponsored the video. If you've enjoyed the video and want to keep up with Warhammer news and releases, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming, usually with new ones coming out each and every day. If you'd like to help support the channel more directly, I do have a Patreon page as well. That's linked down in the video description and has a few benefits, including seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link's down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.